Recording in progress.
Aloha, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Sexuality series. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Anaiya Sophia. For anyone that is returning with me and who tuned in to the last summit, you will remember her from Awakening to the Magic of the Menstrual Cycle. And I am really excited to have her on again to talk about something still just as intimate, but a little different. Welcome back, Anaiya. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much, Angel. Thank you for bringing me back again.
Yeah. Okay. So in my community, I actually had one of the members share some of your YouTube videos over the last year or so, as we have talked about, sacred relationships and that whole realm. And they shared a couple of videos that I found really fascinating, and I wanted to bring that to light and get some of your perspective on it. One of them I remember specifically being taking the war out of man, and it was a really beautiful, sacred little video that you did with your beloved. And I would love to dive into that a little bit with you. If you could just start off by sharing what that even means from your perspective to take the war out of man.
Well, I believe, first of all, I have to say that all of this is coming from my inner realm. No one has spoken to me about this, no one has certainly shown me how. It's all the courage to dare to sort of set up a scenario where we can map these things together in a really unknown way. The words taking the war out of man, I don't even know where they even came from. But maybe it was a movie, probably, knowing me, it was a movie. But I definitely had very strong and very heartfelt images of battle weary men making their way home via the temple, and that it was normal and this was expected to happen, that no man was expected to go straight home to his wife and children, that it was sort of like part of war etiquette that they would come home and clean off in every possible way in the temple environment, where they could gently and carefully piece themselves back together in a somewhat recognizable fashion for their wife and children to greet them at home again. And this imagery roused so much, every part of me, and it wouldn't go away. It would just get stronger and stronger. And whenever I sort of partook in the Sacred Body Awakening, which is like the temple work I've been doing, it would always sort of come in on the tail of that, wanting to be known, wanting to be spoken about, wanting to bring it to the men and women that were present. And so one day Pete agreed, all right, you know, use me, lie me down, do whatever you need to do, and make these videos. And they're very rough and they're very raw and they're very rudimentary, but by golly, the essence is there. And I was able to break it into, I think it was eight bite-sized pieces. And I too am in the seat of learning as I'm making those videos. I'm just daring to go with it, daring to speak it.
That's beautiful. So would you say that, right now there's not like a world war going on, so there's not as many literal soldiers coming back and needing to do this, but from what I'm getting from what you're saying is there's still that energy held in the collective of trauma from war that we're still carrying. And so some of these intimate practices are kind of helping to dismantle that from the energy, if you will, that's still stored there.
Yeah.
Does
Well,
that
I
make
believe
sense?
there is still a war going on, but
Well,
it's a
yes,
bit of a spiritual war.
absolutely.
And it's not for men alone, it's for all of us.
Yes.
We're all, we're so in this soup, we don't even recognize that we're in a war because it's
Yeah.
become part of everyday life. But
Yeah.
there is a war going on, and it's for the soul, I believe. And yeah, it comes with trauma. It comes with duress. It comes with exhaustion. It comes with fatigue. It comes with depression or ADHD and all of these new labels we got now for the state of mind. And that's the battle weary soldier. It's us, it's me and you, and it's our mate, and it's our son, and it's our daughter. And when you enter this deep, luscious, feminine, comforting, loving, safe, trustable space, you can recognize how tired you are of the war. And in her beautiful mantle, a mantle is an old-fashioned word for a dress. In her beautiful mantle, you can literally lay your head down and let the beauty and the grace and the care and the comfort come in. And if you want to go even further still on the Gnostic path, those who are creating the war want this comfort and this safety too. That's why they're piggybacking through us to hopefully one day come back to what we all once remembered.
Mm. Oh, that's such a beautiful piece. And, you know, I am very well aware of the war that's going on behind the scenes. I think a lot more human beings are awake to it now than they've ever been. But I just got introduced to a piece of information that really made me think differently about what's going on. And that is the fact that the malevolent forces, if you will, are also lost. They are themselves lost. So, like I kind of had this idea that because, there's a war that's trickling down from higher realms, that there's a level of intelligence there, but to know that there's energies there that are lost also really made me think differently about it and think about, like the lost human souls on the planet and how they don't even know that they're lost necessarily. And if you don't have your own discernment, that you can get pulled into their distorted perception of reality. Um, so it's very interesting that you bring that up. And
Absolutely.
I
The
definitely
goodness.
believe, I definitely believe that everyone has this deep longing for what you just described as this nurturing, soft, safe energy. I feel like that we're all really craving that, whether we're conscious of it or not. And I feel like that whole piece of taking the war out of man is kind of like helping to remove some of the armor that we have had to put on ourselves to survive in this spiritual war that's been going on the planet for a long time. And in order to really open and feel that gentle, safe, loving, nurturing feminine energy, there has to be this removal of armor, if you will, right?
Yes, I
And
would love.
kind of what
Mm,
that's kind of what the taking the war out of man is, right? Is it's kind of helping to remove the armor, if you will, right?
yeah, the armor, the frequency. I think it would be frequency in our language today. That's, running up and down the nervous system, making us agitated, defensive, um, on alert,
Mm-hmm.
heckles up, not trusting, feeling
Mm-hmm.
unsafe.
Yes.
Um, I'm doing a series at the moment going over the Beatitudes and just wondering, is there anything for us now to look at that framework, and is there anything valuable for us now? And of course, for me, it's yes. So the one we did last night was "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy."
Mm-hmm.
And this was how we spoke. We spoke about we're all evolving. Every single thing in existence is evolving, particularly the ones that set forth this influence, this agenda, the ones that give us the war.
Mm-hmm.
But this mercy I'm speaking of, it's not like instant forgiveness. It's not like, oh, love. um, it's more, it carries a Dakini flavor. So going back to Tibetan Buddhism and understanding the role of the Dakini, the darker, who in their core, these beings are naturally incredibly innocent. They never quite lose that innocence, even if they're like 85 years old. And what they do with that innocence is the service of the Dakini. So they will often find themselves going to the worst of all places in the exterior world or in the interior world. Really, like, the hell realms. And they would get there undercover by looking the part, acting the part, really being cloaked in a blanket of darkness. And that's what gets them past. And then they can just like land in the center of it, and then eventually, woohoo, take off their cloak of darkness and actually reveal only their innocence. There's no agenda. They haven't come to heal. They haven't come to bring the light. They're not here to change anybody, but they are delivering a little message. And that little message is innocence, mercy. And I believe it's what's happening when we take the war out of man.
Mm-hmm.
The priestess is not here to heal the man. No, she is there to facilitate a journey so that he can do his work in a very safe and loving space. And it's the same when you're in the hell realms and you reveal your Dakini self. It's up to them what they're going to do with this messenger that has shown up in their midst.
So it's kind of like shining, like they shine their own light naturally and kind of help activate that in someone else so that they can reconnect with their own innocence.
Yeah. And the innocence is not afraid. And that is why only those with the innocence can do it. Because if you're a little bit afraid, the alchemy is spoiled. And the innocence is not, you can't work on it. You've either got it or you haven't. And it's that pure essence that gets delivered. It's the message. And our human brain, we don't know what that message is, but we kind of do as well.
The soul
we can
knows.
feel it. We can see the meeting. It's amazing. I wish I could grab a few good words and wrap it around it, but I know that you know.
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? It makes me think of children, because for a lot of my life, I have felt a healthy amount of intimidation by children because they don't have fear like adults do, and they still have just all of their innocence intact, and they just feel like fearless little pure beings, if you will, that don't have all of the muck that we pick up as we evolve. And so I think restoring the innocence, especially in the modern day culture, is is like one of the largest things that we're needing right now, is to bring that
Mm,
back to us, that this war in the non-physical has kind of robbed us of, and
mm,
forced us to be in survival for I don't even know how many generations now.
yeah,
So this work of removing some of this armor that we have had to accumulate, it seems so huge,
yes,
honestly. When I think about the entire bigness of this work and what we're being faced with doing right now on the planet, and starting to actually heal some of this
yes,
and bring ourselves out of survival, it's it's complex and it's
yeah,
very personal for each individual.
yeah,
And I'm really grateful for people like you who are tuned in to the understanding of what's needed and have spent enough time with, you know, the divine and the goddess to be able to bring some of that into your own body and
mm,
onto the planet and share it with the world, because it's so very needed right now. So I would love to ask you if you have any tips or advice or any direction that you can offer. If anyone's curious and watching this, like, how do you even start doing that? How do you start taking the armor off? How do you start doing that for yourself, let alone holding that space for your partner? Like, what are some of the first things you think can be done?
I've been discovering some very loving comfort recently. So, um, I've been trained to be a yoga teacher. So I have to be very careful with that part, who is very structured, very organized, and knows all the yoga postures and cycles. So I just have to put that one aside. Like, for instance, I'm working on my diaphragm. It's very, very tight. And it's all the stress of obtaining this new house. um, Now I know I have to get in there in a very new way and bring some medicine. Now, the yogini in me will want to do a little back stretch, a little forward fold, a little opening to the left and opening to the right. But no, I have to put that part aside. And what I'm doing is I'm choosing a kind of a piece of music that really opens the heart. And I don't think you can quite see, but I'm really rubbing that diaphragm in exactly the same way I do if I'm doing sacred body. But I'm journeying in. Now, at first, I realize, oh, it's my imagination. I see my diaphragm. That's wonderful, the fact that I can imagine such a thing, but I'm not in it. So then I just keep working away, and then suddenly, ooh, now there's no more imagery. Now there's sensation. But the fact that I'm having a conversation about sensation shows me I'm in and out, I'm in and out. And I'm still moving, and huge emotions are flowing through me. And then eventually will come the third step, which is the embodiment. And now there's no imagination, there's no visual anywhere, there's no dialogue, there's no communication. I am now the watery element of the cells, but I'm not the outer cell. I'm the outer, I'm the inner, I'm the movement of that cell. And then a new kind of movement is born, not from the human being, not from the imagination, not from any intention, even. All of those things have just gone. And I'm in the diaphragm. I'm not even in the diaphragm, I am the diaphragm. And I'm understanding what's causing the stress from the center out. But it's diaphragm language. It's not English. It's not made of sentences.
Right.
It's diaphragm language. And that is a very good new way to be with that body of ours at this time.
So I would go as far as to say that it requires you to tune into your body enough to be able to sense where you're holding stress, first of all,
Yes.
and then, be in a space where you can actually create a moment of safety and intimacy with yourself to be fully present with your body.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I think that one piece that is like such a monumental task for, I think, most of humanity, is to just come back into the body in general, because we're so used to disassociating from all of the trauma
Yeah.
on the planet. So one of the things I'm hearing that you can do is start feeling into your body and really being present with it. And I know that you can allow your intuition to guide
Yes.
what your body needs, and to approach your body with love and gentleness,
Yes.
in the same way that you would offer that space for a beloved, offering
Yes.
that for yourself, correct?
Yes. 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 And if you find anything untoward in that realm, and you probably will, bringing in that mercy we were talking about earlier. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Well, here is a chance to obtain some mercy. So if we're in the diaphragm and we recognize some shadows, we recognize some disturbing imagery, here is our moment to actually bring some sovereign mercy to that place. Just as the Dakini goes all the way to the worst of all places and brings the innocence, here's our chance to do some Dakini work right now. Because we don't know what's attached to that stress.
Right.
We know, I'm assuming, ancestors. So who knows who we're feeding in that moment?
Mm,
Who
that's
knows
a
what
really,
wrongs we're putting right? I know that's very dualistic language, but sometimes you got
yeah.
to use it.
Yes, and that's a really beautiful point that you bring up, because I don't think that humanity really has a full understanding of just how much our ancestry affects our current life. And that's one of the things that's been really prevalent in my awareness, is how much humanity has suffered for so long, and the fact that enough of us on the planet right now have our basic needs met, like shelter and food and all the things, and actually are starting to have space in our life to do healing work.
Yes.
Because when we do the healing work on ourselves, not just for us, and like you said, you don't necessarily know what you can be holding inside of you and what it's attached to, like ancestry, for instance. And when you look at it that way, it really puts into perspective how big inner work is, not just for ourselves, but for our own lineage and for the collective as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why it feels so big, because we have this huge mess that needs to be cleaned up on the planet, and we
Yes.
have to do it from within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think of all the things that are probably getting activated inside, these last 2 years with COVID, well, what about the ancestors who went through Spanish flu? I expect there's a lot of them, us, um, stirring as we in the here now go through or have gone through. I mean, in Europe at the moment, there's even talk of war. This situation with Russia and the Ukraine. So I know because I am here. There's a lot in motion when that is suggested.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were just getting over COVID. I mean, in Europe at the moment, it's as if like, yay, it's all over. But if you look at the astrology for 2022, you know it is not over. No, no, no. Something else is coming. And for us in Europe, this sense of a European war is in question. I better get back to that diaphragm quick.
Seriously,
Yeah.
it makes me feel like everybody just needs to like pour as much love into themselves as they possibly
Yes.
can to counter all of the
Yes.
stress on the planet right now.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons that, work that has to do with the physical body is becoming so important right now,
So
because when you create safety in your body, you can, house more of your soul and
yes.
have more guidance in how to navigate the tricky terrain that we're
Yeah.
faced with right now. And I just
Yeah.
want to add something about, since we're on the topic of this tremendous amount of collective trauma that we're faced with, slowly dismantling over time, that there's an interesting thing that I have personally found when it comes to healing trauma, especially when it's old and has been stored and like festered for so long, that sometimes there has to be like a trauma trigger that hits that wound
Mm.
to open it up so that you can drain that, spiritual pus out, if you will. And so sometimes there has to be like a blow, if you will, to open up what needs to be opened. And
Yes.
I've personally experienced that in my life, and I kind of feel like that's happening collectively right now as
Absolutely.
humanity's getting broken open so that everything that we've been carrying can start to be released out of us.
Yes.
Do you believe that also?
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like that, it feels like that, it sounds like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we have a great big boil and we've just caught it. Oh no, on a nail.
Yes, and it hurts so much at first, and we're just like in the trauma again. But
Yes.
eventually, we realize that that opened us up for some of that to be released.
Yeah.
I just
I
experienced
like
that
that.
recently, actually.
I like that imagery of draining. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I
We're
see
so
it as
used to cleansing, we're so used to healing, we're so used to detoxing. How about we just drain it?
Yeah.
Let's drain it.
Yes. And we have to have the courage to be able to cut it open first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, coming back to taking the war out of man, if you will.
Mm.
What I'm starting to understand is that there's such an enormous amount of trauma that we're carrying, just in general. And then when you go into the specific aspect of sexuality, there's a tremendous amount of trauma in that area also.
Yes.
I feel like just starting to be present with yourself and approach your body in a gentle way, in the way that you were just demonstrating, is a huge piece to getting deeper into yourself and, aspects of your sexuality. Like, there's so much about sexuality that has nothing to do with sex at all, and that has so much to do with creating a space of safety and doing the work to create an environment for healing to occur in.
Mm.
I feel like it I'm like stumbling over my words right now. Like, it's a good idea to just start loving on yourself and start with, you know, massaging the areas of your body that feel tense or sore, especially if you have sexual trauma to heal from, to not necessarily try to go into your sexuality immediately and like force healing through there, but to just start with being gentle with yourself and slowing down. And a big part of that is just learning how to come back into your body in general, right?
Yeah. I would also add prayer. So whether you're with yourself or whether you're with another, I have a little prayer. It's called Prayer Before Union, where you just kind of perfume the environment, and very humble, very humble. So not an erotic prayer, um, heart prayer. We've fallen so far from what I imagine it once was. And I feel, we were talking about the big boil just a moment ago and catching it and draining the pus and everything. I think the skin of this boil, especially in sexuality, it's denial. And it's very hard, and it's very leathery, and it's built up over years. We're like denying something about ourselves, or being secretive about ourselves, or just not seeing and daring not to own the whole of our sexuality. And there will be glorious parts, and there will be what we might call shadowy parts, or even perverted parts, or obscure parts. To really do this work, we have to bring all. And we have to sit in a nice, wise, mature circle and confess our all. And everyone will be nodding their heads because they recognize every weird and wonderful thing we're bringing to the table. That is an amazing first step. And that as we listen to our weird and wonderful ways, our heart is open, and our heart is deep, and our heart is mature and compassionate and merciful. And we just soak up all of those delicious confessions, because stage one is we have to come clean. We have to share, we have to tell ourselves everything that we are sexually engaged with, just to be honest. Because a lot of pain and a lot of suffering is all these little back alleys that we're taking, and we're not telling anyone, and we're not telling ourselves. And if we do get caught out, we deny and we lie. And then another layer to the leathery skin.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of.
And again, the counsel must be wise, it must be mature. We can't go, oh.
Right.
It's like, yeah, brother, yeah, sister, I've done that.
Yes.
Because we're all hiding in this world thinking we're depraved or weird or odd in some way.
Because not enough of us are really showing all of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why storytelling and sharing your stories is one of the most powerful medicines for humanity right now, because that helps us connect with one another's human. And as the years go by on, Earth right now, while we're all going through this huge evolutionary push, I'm starting to see more of the realness come out in humanity, and people starting to leave behind the perfect, curated image of what society has trained us to think that we need to uphold to be proper and accepted in society. I think that's one of the things that has kept a lot of people from really showing themselves. And the more and more I see people starting to show some of their authenticity and their quirkiness, the more I'm starting to realize that everyone's weird, and this perfectly curated image is a lie, and nobody, not one human being, is actually that. We're all authentic, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I can include some links to some of the videos that we've been talking about, taking the war out of man, because they're really moving just to feel the energy that you and your beloved created for those videos. Really brings a sense of sacredness into being intimate and close together,
Mm, mm,
it feels very pure and innocent and deep,
yes.
and a lot of the things that I feel like people are missing in their relationships.
It
So
was
I just
also
wanted to
very
touch.
scary.
Oh, say that again.
It was also very scary to not hide behind our current day personas, but to, when Pete would come toward me, that I would dare to look further than his current day persona, and the love and probably the trauma that was there too, because it's huge. It's huge. This work, this process, taking the war out of man, from my understanding, it was something that was ripped away from the people almost overnight. Suddenly, the temple and all of its practices were forbidden, and they were pulled down brick by brick, demolished, and churches put over the top. And so suddenly the people didn't have their not modality, they didn't have their medicine.
Mm.
And this is to me, this sears through my body. It's like lightning. It's not even a travesty. I need an even bigger word than that. It's cruel. It's spiritually cruel. It's not even a religion. That that way of life was snatched and taken away. And so when I was doing the taking the war out of man, that's where I'm heading. That's where I'm heading. It's not the romance of the man coming into the temple. It's why the temple's not here anymore. And that's pretty big.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's huge. It's huge. And I just got, I've been a truth seeker for my entire life also, and have been studying, what the hell actually has gone on this planet and what went
Mm.
wrong, because I know that it was originally meant to be an Eden for us, and it
Yeah.
was at one point. And it makes me think about this, I'll just say colonialism for lack of a better term, but I know it's even bigger than that, and how it has actually successfully stripped us of our ways of being. Our What the actual medicine is for human beings is not, a pharmaceutical pill. There's
Yes.
storytelling, there's, temple life, there's community, there's so many aspects that a human being needs in order to be a whole healthy individual and
Mm.
to coexist in community with other human beings. And to think that it hasn't made sense to me, like how it actually happened. And I just learned another piece recently that was like basically the way that it happens is colonialism comes in and totally changes the language. So
Mm.
everyone is forbidden to speak their native language, and they all have to learn a new language, and they're not allowed to practice their sacred dance or any of their spiritual practices. And because I have been like racking my brain for years now trying to understand why most of us don't know anything about our lineage or our
Mm.
heritage. Like,
Mm.
stories are what keep our line alive. And
Mm.
the fact that most people don't even know like two generations back and have no concept of any of what their ancestors have been through just has blown my mind. And when I learned that language piece and how that has actually
Yes.
worked, it made
Yes.
sense as to how it was successfully rolled out to completely strip
Yes.
us of our stories that give us true meaning and a connection to something other than just this lifetime.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you're storing your memory in a language that's not your mother tongue, you're not storing your memory.
Yeah.
So of course you can't go back because it's not your mother tongue. Yeah. It's not the soul language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a glance at some questions that I wrote down for you. Okay, so this ties back into what we've been talking about. I was just recently discussing with a man that's very close to me about, he admitted to me that he's aware that he has been desensitized.
Mm.
And I think that's a huge piece that prevents most men from being able to really meet a woman in her depth, because woman is naturally highly sensitive. And it made me think about this taking the war out of man as also being a way to bring sensitivity back into him and restore it. Is that correct? And it also makes me think about, the mystery of the feminine and how deep woman naturally is, and how, to be in a true, partnership long term, there is an element that's in woman that she doesn't even have control over. That is the great mystery of the feminine, that will call a man into his highest embodiment and call him to journey really deeply. And I feel like that's one of the unconscious fears that a lot of men hold, is being taken into depths with the feminine.
Yes. Yes.
So I guess it's a process, if you will, of spending time with each other and doing work together to create safety for one another. Like, what is there, like, what would you say about this? Like how do we go about that? Like, restoring that sensitivity and helping, men feel in their courage to face more.
Well, I would suggest all the embodiment exercises with breath, with slowness, with I don't know why. Maybe you're not talking about this at all, but I'm thinking of lingams. When you say he feels desensitized, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of that. That's
Yeah.
popping up. Let's just stick with that a moment.
Okay.
I like to be really practical with these things. So let's just say my beloved says his lingam is feeling desensitized, that he has absolutely zero feeling there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd do the breath work, the holding, the dialogue whilst holding. But I think one of my favorite methods is to use green clay. You understand what I mean? The green clay that you'd put on your face?
Yeah.
But in a ritualistic way. So you'd make the green clay together. You'd put in certain carrier oils together. You'd put in prayers together, ancestral prayers. You might even request a certain healing of a certain event because he feels that's the culprit. And so you'd put the green clay over the lingam, avoiding the hair and avoiding the opening at the top. Now, it's only a matter of time before he feels the tightening of the green clay, which can actually be very pleasurable, but there's no denying that he won't notice that. You know what it's like when it's on our face.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. So you guys can have a lot of good fun and laughter about that. But the green clay is drawing out all this material that you put in with the prayer, the desensitization, the numbness, perhaps the softness, yeah, a sense of, it's just not working how I want it to. The green clay is cleverly working away in the background and just drawing those elements out. And by the time he has washed it off, not only will he have a fabulously, highly sensitive lingam, but it's also been shamanically cleaned. And you can do a very similar kind of work with a woman, actually. You can make a little green clay lingam, tiny, just a tiny little one, enough to sit on. And with your skirt, you can just sit there cross-legged, no one knows anything. But the green clay is having the same effect, drawing out of the yoni elements and bits and pieces that just are not welcome there anymore. Energy, memories, little collective bits and pieces. And this is really powerful stuff. This is kind of like shamanic body work. And that'll do it for sure. It's not dangerous, it's not harmful, but it's strong. It's strong medicine.
Yeah, that it makes me think of what magic actually is. It's not some fairy tale thing that doesn't exist. It's how we're meant to interact with our physical world by, creating ritual and using things in our physical environment and infusing them with, different steps and intentions, and it can be really powerful. That was a really special little ritual that you shared. Thank you for.
But even if you were referring to the heart, but for some reason I thought the lingam.
Sure.
You can even put the green clay over the heart. And it might be organ, it might be chakra. Exactly the same thing. Make your brew, make your medicine, prayers and oils. Has to be some oil in there because otherwise it's just too dry and pulls the skin too tight. But a beautiful thing. Put it over his heart, lay him down, cover him with leaves, cover him with moss, cover him with all the goodies that feel resonant to his soul. And then, of course, the green clay will start to pinch and draw the skin close together. And he's like, I surrender. And then he washes it off with warm water, and his chest, his heart, his lungs will be cleared. And he will have a feeling echo. Oh my God, I can feel my heart.
That's so beautiful. I love the bringing in elements of the natural world using leaves and plants and clay, because clay is so powerful, and the way that you're describing using it, with it physically draws toxins out of you, but you can use it to draw out, energetic and spiritual toxins. That's really profound. I just wanted to clarify one piece about that. If anyone is curious about doing this, I understood the full, like using it on the man, but can you clarify exactly how you would do it for a woman? Because it doesn't feel like it would be good for your yoni to feel the clay on some of the inner parts. So how exactly would you do that?
So I've actually got a PDF I could send you with instructions and images. But for
Wow.
now, we can say you just make a little lingam, tiny, and it's on a flat base. Now, the most important thing, so you shape your lingam with your prayers, with your green clay, you put it in the sun to bake. When it's time, you cover it with oil. Almond oil, coconut oil, a nice clean oil. So no essential oil in there, just a nice clean oil. And that is what's going to make it very compatible for the yoni because it's oiled. You're not going to have that intense drying that the green clay does. but the green clay is still going to work away on the inside, drawing things in, but you are sat on an oily base. And so you just sit in it, on it, and it goes up the yoni. What's that?
Couple of
6
inches.
centimeters. So obviously I do this work with women and they're like, oh, fabulous, I'm going to make a huge one. And I'm like, ladies, no, 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 definitely don't make a huge one, because you got to sit on that thing. And it's not fleshy, it's hard. So you want to make a little mini one, and, mapping the shape. If you veer off to the back, bend it that way. For goodness sake. And then you just sit there, and I would say half an hour. And I would say in nature. So I often do this work at twilight around the lake. And so should anyone who's walking their dog go past, all they'll see is a bunch of ladies with skirts, seemingly sat cross-legged on the floor. It is potent medicine. And then when you feel done, you take your little lingam on your base, green clay, and you walk into the lake and you just drop it. And you turn away and you walk out. And of course, the green clay lingam base will just dissolve in the water. And that is that. It is done.
Wow. That sounds powerful, and I can't imagine it's extremely powerful when you're doing it with a group of other women.
There's a lot of prayers, there's a lot of singing, there's a lot of laughter. You get into something and know the natural world is working through that base, so that nature is helping. Nature is bringing something up through the lingam and drawing it down and out. So it's like a real recycling job happening.
That sounds so powerful, especially in nature when you're in direct contact with Mother Earth.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's a surprise.
That was definitely, and that was a really incredible ritual that I would have never thought of.
No, I must say, this was given to me by a woman who had a stillborn. And she asked her womb over and over again, how can I heal? How can I heal? How can I heal? And this is what her womb told her.
Wow. So it came straight from the mother, the goddess.
Yes.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go try that soon.
Absolutely.
I'll have to let you know how it goes.
Yes.
Okay, so I did want to ask you if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about the Sacred Body Awakening Facilitator Training. I would love to hear about that.
Well, the Sacred Body Awakening is the temple work. So it's everything I have been imagining and bringing it, just daring to bring it through. I think one of the first things that really stands out with Sacred Body Awakening is that it's done in a trinity, it's done in a triad. And that's very important because we don't want to give anyone the feeling, I am going to heal you. That's the old model, that's the old world. It's we are entering an unknown process together, and we shall be healing one another. At the moment, there are 9 constellations, there's 9 positions, and each of these constellations sort of gives birth to a particular range of feeling, emotions, and memories locked in the body. And so we're tackling certain things with all these different constellations: childhood, embryology, birthing, sexuality, death, even, you name it, it's in there, and it's growing. It's got a life of its own. and all sorts of depths are coming in, like nations. We're starting to heal one another's history. And this showed up when I was in Edinburgh. I'm a Brit, I'm half a Brit actually, half Irish. Um, so when I was in Edinburgh and I could hear all these Scottish women speaking, I was like presenting the sacred body, and I'm like, oh no. Hadrian's Wall started to show up. So Hadrian's Wall is a wall that the Brits built to keep the Scottish out. And I'm like, no, 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 don't. But I realized, oh my gosh, in this deep intimacy that we are sharing together as women, our history wants to come up and be healed by womankind. And it's like the women work on the bodies to clean up the bodies. So that's what I mean by there are hidden depths that show up whenever other nations are present in the circle, which I love and welcome, but it's
Wow.
rather big when it happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's got to be an interesting experience for you, because you're highly intuitive, and you have the sight to be able to read energy, because your ability to be able to see things, not everybody's tapped into like that. So I think that's a really beautiful quality for you to have, especially being the facilitator who's in essence leading. And it makes me think about just how utterly complex the human psyche is, and the unconscious, and how there's like this entire world that exists in the depths that most of us aren't even aware of most of the time. And it's not always the easiest thing to access. I know that a lot of people know that, they are holding trauma and wounds, they've been through things, but it's usually not on the surface. And it's not the easiest thing to locate some of what's in there in the depths. And so it sounds like this work is really powerful and has the ability to kind of come at different angles to bring things out of the psyche, if you will. That sounds quite shamanic.
Yes, yeah. I feel very supported by the natural world. It's as bizarre as it sounds, here's sacred body awakening and a lot of nakedness and a lot of women and men in various levels of undress. You would have thought it would be a tantric lineage, but it's not. It's coming in from the forest.
Wow.
It's coming in from the animal kingdom. This is what I'm mapping, this is what I'm reading. And when I bring that part, the people open up even more. When they know that the trees are involved in this, and the mammals and the birds, when they realize that nature is rushing towards their circle to bring everything they can possibly provide for these human beings to become what they once were, or step into what they are destined to be. That is what opens the heart beyond anything I've ever known. It's just amazing. The whole thing is just paradox.
That sounds so like such a beautiful experience. And in essence, what I'm hearing from you is that the natural world is being very supportive of helping to reunite humans with their true essence.
Yes.
Before we were, got into a bunch of cities, when we were connected, when we spent time in the forest, when, we talked to animals. And it's so beautiful to hear that Gaia and all of her creatures respond to this sacred work, and these containers that you're holding. really beautiful. I'm like, I want to come. All I can think is that whoever comes to do these experiences with you must be so brave. Everyone must just have so much courage to be able to
Mm,
dive into deeper parts of themselves.
yeah.
It just sounds like such a truly magical, transformational experience. How
Mm,
special.
mm, mm.
All right, beautiful.
Yeah,
It looks like we've been on for about an hour. This
great.
uncovered some things that I wasn't expecting, but I love
Same
that. It's
here.
a good conversation.
Yeah.
I would love it if you would give us a link to the ritual with the clay that you mentioned.
Yes, yes, yes,
That
I
would
will
be
send it.
so wonderful if you could share that.
Yes.
And is there anything that you've got going on right now that you feel inspired to share? I feel like you have a lot of stuff going on all of the time. You're a very rich woman.
Well, I mean, the big thing is obviously this house we've bought here in the French Pyrenees, and how my vision is to house a mystery school here,
Mm,
and that the guide is the natural world. The guide is all these amazing places that are here in the French Pyrenees. Lots of connection with Mary Magdalene, the
mm.
Cathars, Celts, Druids. Um, yeah, that's my vision, to fully surrender to being like the abbess of this mystery school, where I really don't have to do anything. I just have to take someone somewhere
Mm.
because it's potent around here. It sure is.
Oh, I can imagine.
Mm.
And is it an Airbnb or not an Airbnb, a bed and breakfast that you have going
Yes,
on right now?
yes, it's a bed and breakfast, and we also do a lot of retreats here, mine and other people. So others are more than welcome to come here. And we've also got the beginnings of an animal sanctuary. So we want to rescue animals and take in abandoned animals.
I
Yeah,
have a very
that's really
similar
important.
vision
Yeah, then
that
it's
I
full
felt.
circle. Nature has helped us and we've helped nature.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that you are able to live closer to her and
Mm,
uh, just.
yeah.
It looks like a really beautiful place that you've got going on. I can imagine that retreats there are.
What's so brilliant is it used to be run by the Catholic Church.
Oh
I
my
just think it's
gosh,
brilliant.
that's so fun.
And
And you're
again, full
basically
circle.
you're turning it back into a
Yeah,
temple.
yeah. Yeah,
That sounds like some sacred work.
yeah.
Are you still doing your storytelling that you do online?
Yes, I still do that sort of like in the autumn, winter, when
Okay.
the nights are dark and everyone's just like, oh, can't wait to get into bed and listen to a tale.
Oh, yeah, those sound really good too. I love that you're sharing those stories. There's not
Mm,
enough people that are holding that space that you're doing. So I
yeah,
just want to say thank you. And it's just been so lovely to connect with you again. I love
absolutely.
feeling your frequency and all of the magic that you are um, involved in over there. And really excited to share this with the community. So I believe that does it for us. If you don't have anything else left to share, then we're just going to wrap it up and say goodbye.
Okay. Well, yeah, I just want to say just how much I can see change in you. You
Oh,
have fully blossomed into profound womanhood. And I absolutely tilt my hat to you, celebrate you with great vigor.
oh my gosh, that is so sweet. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Amazing what 2 years can do, right?
Mm.
All right, beautiful. This has been a really incredible conversation. And thank you for tuning in, everyone. And I will see you on the next episode. Aloha.